Welcome back to another Little Steamers video. My name is Miss Nicole and I am a Youth Services Librarian with the Grundy Library. Welcome to today's experiment. Today we're going to be experimenting with some ice. This is a great experiment you can also do with snow to see what type of material insulates the ice better and stops it from melting faster. So what you're going to need for this experiment is about 4 or 5 clear glasses. I'm using these mason jars. You're going to need 4 or 5 bags of ice. You can either fill the bags all the way up or just have a few pieces of ice in the bag itself. Just make sure you're using the same amount of ice in each bag so that your variables are the same, because if one bag had more ice, obviously it would melt a lot slower than one bag that only had one piece of ice. So just make sure you have the same amount of ice in every bag. Then you're going to need your different materials that you're going to do this experiment with. So I brought a few different random materials with me, but feel free to use anything you have around the house. Just make sure they're of different types of materials. So my one jar is going to just be the bag of ice to be our control. Then I'm using these larger plastic bags as like a plastic insulator. I have a bag of balloons that I'm going to use. So this is more of like a latex rubbery insulator material. Then I'm also going to use a pair of socks. You can use a pair of gloves, a hat, a scarf, some type of cloth material that you have around the house. And then lastly, I'm using some paper. So for this one, I'm using scraps of construction paper I have laying around. So feel free to use paper, plastic, cloth, napkins, paper towels, any type of different materials you have laying around the house. Just make sure they're all different types so that you can figure out which one insulates your ice better. All right, now that we've gathered our supplies, it's a great time to pause. Ask your little ones some questions before we start the experiment. Which of these materials do you think is going to keep the ice from melting? Which do you think is not going to protect the ice from melting? Do you think the jars have anything to do with the ice melting? Do you think that the ice is just going to melt no matter what? So these are just some great questions to start getting your little one to think about what's happening with the ice, what's happening with the materials, and start getting them to think about that science method and hypothesis method kind of thinking. All right, let's get started with the experiment.
All right, you're going to want to start by taking each of your mason jars and filling them first at the bottom with your insulator, then putting in your ice, and then filling the top once again with your insulator of choice. So here you can see the first jar I did was with the construction paper, and then the second jar I did the sock. I put one sock in on the bottom, then put the ice in, and then put the other sock on top. You want to make sure that the bag of ice is completely sealed, no air coming out, and that you want to make sure it's completely covered by whatever material you're using for the installation. Next, I tried the balloons here. You can see I'm putting some on the bottom and then again on the top, but this one I also tried to put some around the sides so it's completely covering the ice in the bag. Here again, just one more time, doing the plastic bags and then the bag of ice and then more plastic bags on top, trying to really make sure the ice is nice and covered. And then lastly, our control, which is just putting the bag of ice in the jar. Then after that, you're going to want to take all of these jars and put them in a sunny window for about 30 minutes. So we're going to place those in a sunny window in my house right now, and we're just going to see how well our insulating materials work for this experiment. All right, so now we are going to take out our insulation and inspect our ice. Here you can see we did have some melting. You can see there's water now in the bag, but each of the insulators are going to show a different result on how much has melted and how much is still solid ice. So I just took out the sock one. This one looks pretty good. Still a lot of solid ice in there. Took out the balloons, checking this bag, and it looks like there's a little bit more liquid in this one than solid ice from the other two that we just pulled out. Lastly, are pulling out our plastic insulator. See what this looks like. Again, definitely a lot more water in that bag than in the previous bags that we pulled out. And then lastly, our control. This one should have the most water at the bottom, which it does. No insulation means the ice melted a lot quicker than the other ones. All right, now you're going to take your bags of ice and compare them to your hypothesis at the beginning of the experiment. Which ones were similar to your predictions? Which ones weren't? Which of the bags has the least amount of water and the most amount of physical ice? That is your best insulator.
So as you can see, all of the ice has come out of each of the mason jars. In today's experiment, it seems that the socks and the paper were the best insulators. But really, if I look hard, I think the socks are the clear winner. The bag has the least amount of water in it, which means the ice didn't melt as much as the other containers or bags of ice. So today's best insulator, the warm fuzzy socks. I really hope you enjoyed today's Little Steamers experiment. It's a great way for you and your little ones to get involved in science with things you have around the house. It allows them to start asking questions, experimenting with different types of materials, and really start thinking about the different processes in our everyday world. For more Little Steamers videos and more library programming, please visit our website at www.grundylibrary.org or check out our social media pages. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you next time. Goodbye.